Hello students, welcome to Sri Jayendra's Ring Zone classes. I am your friend and mentor for coming classes with respect to physics. This is lecture number 4 of our unit Mechanical Properties of Fluids. So let's begin with today's class. In today's class we are starting with the fluid dynamics. Let's look. When we say a fluid is in motion or a fluid flow, the study of fluids in motion is known as the fluid dynamics. While discussing fluid flow, we generally make the following assumptions. So please keep this assumptions in mind. It's the fluid should be non-viscous. That means there is no internal friction between the adjacent layers of the fluid. The fluid is incompressible. That means the density of the fluid is constant. Next, a fluid motion is steady. That means the steady flow of a fluid means that the velocity, density and pressure at each point in the fluid does not change with the time. So these are the certain assumptions that we assume that this is how a fluid should behave when they are in motion. So based on that we have two different kinds of flow. One is them which is a streamline flow and another would be a turbulent flow. First we will look at the streamline flow. Let's have a look. It's a streamline flow. It is a flow of liquid over plane surfaces or through a tube so long as the velocity of fluid is less than the certain limiting value, and this limiting value generally we call it as a critical velocity. This is called as the streamline flow or the laminar flow. In a streamline flow, the velocity of liquid at a given point is always constant both in magnitude and direction. So let's suppose this is the cross sectional view of one of the tube, and let's denote it with different names. It's an A, B and C. So in a streamline flow it would be sure that let's suppose A, at position A all the water molecules or the fluid will be having a velocity of 10 meter per second. At position B, let's suppose it is called a speed of 12 meter per second at this point, and let's at point C it is possible that speed is 8 meter per second. But the thing is, all the fluids that has been passed through A will be having the same speed. It is at 10 meter per second. All the fluids that has been passed through B will be having the same speed. It's a 12 meter per second. Same way, all the fluids that have been passed through C will be having a speed of 8 meter per second. So this is the situation that I'm not saying, neither I am mentioning nor I am saying that fluid is in uniform motion. No, it is not. Look at this. Its speed keeps on changing, but at particular location, at particular instant, it must be having same velocity. But while I say velocity, I mean it must be constant both in magnitude as well as direction. This is what streamline flow is all about. The pressure difference determines the direction of a flow of a fluid, just like the potential difference determines the direction of flow of electric current. And in the streamline is the path such that tangent to which at any point gives the direction of the flow of the liquid at that point. And streamline flow may be straight line or curve. So if it is a straight line curve, there is no need to find out the direction, that we can observe it and we can easily understood it that this is the direction of flow. But let's suppose the streamline is something like this. To find out the direction in this situation, what I need to do is, suppose at this point the direction of flow is this. Suppose at this point the direction of flow is this. Suppose at this point direction of flow is this. Suppose at this point direction of flow is this. So at every different instant it is having the different direction. So to find out the direction, you need to put a tangent on it, and if you plot a tangent on it, it will show you the direction of streamline flow at that instant of time. I hope this is clear. Is it clear? Now, one more thing is, two streamlines can never intersect each other. Let's suppose if you ask that this is the first streamline and this is the second streamline, does it possible to have this kind of two streamlines which intersect each other? I mean, this is not possible at all, because if you observe this point, it's a point of intersection. If you ask this streamline, then the direction of flow will be this. If you ask this streamline, the direction of flow will be this. And at a single location, there could not be two direction of streamlines. I hope you understand this, that at any one of the point, either it will go through first path or it will go through two path, second path. It will not going to move on both the paths simultaneously. This is not possible. So that's why two streamlines never intersect each other. I hope this is clear. Is it clear? Great. So in a streamline flow, there will be no radial flow. Radial flow would not be then. Pressure on any cross section is constant, and velocity at any point remains same, but may change from point to point, as we have discussed it, A, B, and C. That it is constant for A, it is constant for B, it is constant for C, but it may vary from A to B, B to C, and something like that. And no streamlines can intersect with each other, that we have just discussed. So these are the properties of streamline flow. Let's look a bundle of streamlines having the same velocity of fluid over any cross section which is perpendicular to the direction of flow. This is what we call as a tube of the flow. This is tube of flow. Now, this was all about the streamline flow. This was the first category of the flow. Now let's understand what is second. It's a category of flow which we call as a turbulent flow. We say that if the velocity of fluid in streamline flow is gradually increase, so it is greater than the critical velocity of the fluid, it is greater than the critical velocity of the fluid, then we can say that flow becomes suddenly irregular and unsteady, and this disorderly motion of the fluid is called as the turbulent flow. As you can see, this is the cross sectional area, this is the cross sectional area of the tube, and as you observe that every particle having certain different kind of motion of on its own. Yes, so this is what turbulent flow is all about. The minimum velocity at which the flow of a liquid changes from laminar or streamline to turbulent is known as the critical velocity. Are you clear with this? Are you? Do you have any doubts? Is there? No? Hurricane or storm eddies or vortices are the examples of the turbulent flow. And turbulent flow of fluid at any point does not remains constant but change with time, both in terms of the magnitude and direction. So you can see this is the turbulent flow, and you can observe it that it is going to change in both the way. When I say both the way, I mean that it is going to change according to its magnitude, it is going to change according to its direction. So you cannot claim anything, about the turbulent flow. It is that irregular flow. Let's differentiate. Let's look at the differences and comparison of the streamline flow and turbulent flow. So streamline flow is regular and orderly flow, while turbulent flow it's a irregular and zigzag flow. Velocity of liquid is less than the critical velocity in the streamline flow, while in the turbulent flow velocity of liquid is more than the critical velocity. In a streamline case, velocity of a liquid at a point is constant with time, while in the case of the turbulent, velocity of a liquid at a point is not constant with time. In the streamline, viscosity is effective in this flow, and in the case of a turbulent, density is effective in this flow. So these are the certain comparisons and differences and streamline flow of turbulent flow. Generally, when we study any flow, we always considered a streamline flow because there is no relation of turbulent flow, because it is going to change with respect to time, change with respect to direction, as well as change with respect to location. So we cannot study it. It is because it is an irregular flow of a fluid. We always study the streamline flow. So let's begin our motion in a streamline flow. The first topic would be the equation of continuity. Let's have a look what equation of continuity is. First, it's a principle of continuity. According to the principle, or we can say it's an equation of continuity. It's a mass of fluid flowing per second entering into the tube is equal to the mass of fluid flowing per second leaving out of the tube. So basically this is the mass conservation. This depends on the mass conservation. If you see this in a physics, there is no mass conservation. Here we are using indirectly the conservation of mass in principle of continuity. But you have seen the conservation of mass in chemistry. But in physics, we have not defined any conservation such as it's a conservation of mass. No, we don't have anything such like this. So now let's look and let's observe what principle of continuity according to is. It's a mass of fluid flowing per second. So when it's a per second, it's a mass divided by time, and this mass can be written as density into area into length. It's a density into area into length divided by time t. Basically mass is equals to density into volume, and volume has been replaced by area into length. So if I write it's an L as an X, or let it write it's an L, so this is equals to A into L into rho divided by time. I hope this is clear. Yes. So this is equals to, this is equals to A into V into rho. This is A into V into rho. I hope this is clear. Is it clear? So consider a liquid in a streamlined flow through a tube of non-uniform cross-sectional area. Basically this is mass of fluid flowing per second. It's an m by t. So it is basically a mass per time, and this could be given as, let's suppose we have two cross a pipe like this, that this is the area 1, this is the area 2. It is obvious that a fluid that is entering here would be leaving from here, so density would remain the same. But at this cross sectional area its velocity is v1, and at this cross sectional area its velocity is v2. So it is having different velocities. So according to the mass of fluid flowing per second through point, let's call this as a B and this is C, will be the same. This is equals to rho into A1 V1 is equals to rho into A2 V2. And from this this is equals this equation. This equation is called as the equation of continuity. This is A1 V1 is equals to A2 V2, which is equals to constant. I hope this is clear. Is it clear? Is it clear? So from this it's an A1 V1 is equals to A2 V2. That means V inversely proportional to the A, or you can say it vice versa too. It's an A proportional to the 1 by V, which means that if if area is increases, velocity is decreasing, or area is decreasing, velocity is increases. So if the cross sectional area is small, then the velocity of the fluid increases, and vice versa. Let's discuss certain limitations of this principle of continuity. First thing, it's a flow should be steady. That means this is applicable to streamline, as we have discussed in a very starting, that this is to be discussed if it is the streamline flow. Next, a fluid should be non-compressible and non-viscous. It should not have any viscous force between two layers of a fluid. And according to the principle of continuity, mass is conserved. Yes, it is based on the conservation of mass. I hope this is clear. Is it clear? So please keep this in mind. It's an A into V that would be equals to constant. I hope this is clear. Is it clear? Great. Now, are you ready for the questions based on this? Let's have a look. Let's suppose we have a certain tube, something having non-uniform cross-sectional area. Let's suppose this is the radius of 1 meter, while this is the radius of 2 meter. A flow that has been passed from here, it is having speed of 80 meter per second. We need to find out this flow. So the question is find out velocity of liquid that has been passed that has been passed through point 2. You need to do this. This is second and this is first. How will you do this? How can we do this? What is to be done? So what what we understand is that you need to do this. It's an A1 V1 that should be is equals to A2 V2. For the A1, it is the pi into R1 square multiplied by velocity 1. This is equals to pi into R2 square multiplied by velocity 2. So from this pi has been cancelled out, and this is R1 square, it's a 1 square multiplied by velocity 1, which is equals to 80 meter per second. This is equals to radius of 2 meter, so this is 2 square multiplied by V2. This is 80 is equals to 4 multiplied by V2, and from this is 80 divided by 4, which is equals to 20 meter per second. I hope this is clear. Is it clear? So at this cross sectional area, the speed of the fluid will be only 20 meter per second. As you can see, this its area increases, velocity decreases. I hope this is clear. Is it clear? Great. Let's work for the next question. Suppose the fluid is flowing through this pipe, which is given something like this. It is, yes. So a cross sectional area of this side, it's a 10 centimeter square, and flow of through this, it's a 80 meter per second. At this cross sectional area, it's a 2 centimeter square, and its velocity is, let's call it, it's a 30 meter per second. This cross sectional area, it's a 4 centimeter square. You need to find out the velocity through this. It's a V3, that is what we require. So what we understand is whatever the fluid that is entering from here, whatever the fluid that is entering from here should be leaving from either this or this. So let's call this as a Q1. It's a fluid current, that is would be equals to divided into Q2 and Q3. So it's a flow of a liquid. It's a Q1 equals to Q2 plus Q3. If this is the situation, what I can write, it's a A1 V1, that is equals to A2 V2 plus A3 V3. I hope this is clear. So it's an A1 V1, as every area R in centimeter square, you can directly write it because it is going, no need to convert it, because they are going to be cancelled out, centimeter square to conversion ratios, multiplied by V1, it's an 80 meter per second. That would be equals to, this is 2 into 30 plus this is equals to 4 into V3. So this is 10 into 80, which is 800, is equals to 60 plus 4 into V3. From this it is 800 minus 60, which is equals to 800 minus 60, it's a 740, which is equals to 4V3, and from this it is 740 divide by 4. So if I do this, it's a 740. That means this is equals to 154, it's a 600, and 34 120, 35. So it's a 150 plus 35, yes, it's a 185 meter per second. I hope this is clear. Is it clear? Is it? So do you understand this completely, that how area and velocity can work together? Are you sure? Are you sure? Do you have any doubts over this? Have you? Have you any doubts? Is there anything? No? Great. So now let's discuss Bernoulli's principle. What is Bernoulli's principle? Let's have a look. In case of the streamlined flow of non-viscous, incompressible, and irrotational fluid, the Bernoulli said that the sum of the pressure energy per unit mass, kinetic energy per unit mass, and potential energy per unit mass always remains constant at every point. So he said that this three energy, first it's a pressure energy per unit mass, second it's a kinetic energy per unit mass, and third it's a potential energy per sorry potential energy per unit mass is always remains constant at every point. So Bernoulli's principle is again stated under this assumptions. First, it's a fluid should be non-viscous, and second, flow should be a streamline. If this has been satisfied, if this has been satisfied, we can derive this all things. So so let's understand what would be the situation. The situation would be that is something like this, that let's suppose this is one of the horizontal pipe, or I should say this is the pipe, something like this. This is the horizontal layer, this is height h1, this is the height h2, this is the cross sectional area a1, this is the cross sectional area a2, this is the velocity v1, this is velocity v2. This is the situation. Let's suppose that rho, that would be equals to the density of liquid, h it's the height of the fluid from the ground level, v it is the velocity of the fluid. So let's calculate the kinetic energy, and that kinetic energy could be given as it is equals to half into m into v square. While I say it's a half into m into v square, it would be equals to half into mass could be replaced by density into volume into v square. So if I want it's a kinetic energy per volume, it's a kinetic energy per unit volume, that could be given as half rho v square. Same way potential energy, that could be written as m into g into h. And if I replace this mass, it could be density into volume into g into h. So this is potential energy per unit volume, that would be equals to rho gh. This is pressure energy, this is what we call as a pressure energy. That pressure energy per unit volume will be rho. I hope this is clear. So so it is the pressure energy per volume plus kinetic energy plus volume, plus this is the potential energy per unit volume would be the constant. So this is equals to p plus half rho v square plus rho g h is equals to constant. Or we can say this, let's divide this by rho into g, then I can have this, it's a p by rho g plus v square by 2g plus h, that would be equals to constant. This all are known as the heads, but we are going to discuss it in later on. But let's first understand how this is achieved. Let's go through once derivation of this, and then we are going to use this Bernoulli's principle. Let's check a proof of it. So this is the situation, that this is, let's say, h1, this is h2, and let's call this as a this as a b. A cross sectional area over here is a1, cross sectional area over here is a2. Consider a tube of flow of ab, and this ends are at height h1 and h2 as shown in the figure. So what we understand is decrease in pressure energy plus gain in potential energy will be equals to increase in kinetic energy. So the gain in kinetic energy could be written as it's a half into rho into v2 square minus v1 square. Loss in potential energy would be equals to rho g into bracket h2 minus n1. And work done on the fluid work done on the fluid could be given as it's a force into displacement. So when I say it's a force into displacement, it is basically F into dx. And if it is F into dx, this is equals to pressure difference multiplied by area into dx. It's a P1 minus P2 into A into dx. So it's a work done per unit volume, that is what we call as a pressure energy. This is P1 minus P2 into A dx divided by unit volume. This is equals to P1 minus P2, and this is relation number 3. From this we have learned this. It's a relation number 1, relation number 2, and as I said, it's a decrease in pressure energy plus gain in potential energy would be equals to increase in kinetic energy. So it is basically 3 is equals to 1 plus 2. If it is such, then P1 minus P2 is equals to half into rho into bracket V2 square minus V1 square plus rho g into bracket h2 minus h1, and from this it's a P1 plus half rho V1 square plus rho g h1, that should be is equals to P2 plus half rho V2 square plus rho g h2, or I should say this, it's a P plus half rho V square plus rho g h is equals to constant. This is the result of Bernoulli's theorem. I hope this is clear. Is it clear? Is it? Do you have any doubts? So basically it is the situation that you can see this even at the sprayer. Even at the sprayer, the things will be that pressure energy per unit volume plus kinetic energy per unit volume plus potential energy plus unit volume is equals constant, and constant as they flow, as it is same for the higher levels. I hope this is clear. So so I hope this is clear that I need to remember only this thing. It's a P plus half rho V square plus rho gh is equals to constant. If I know this, all things will be done for sure. I hope this is clear. Is it clear? Have you noted it down? Please noted it down. It's a P pressure plus half rho V square plus rho gh. This is equals to constant. Have you noted it? Have you? Are you sure? Great. Now let's look at the certain quick questions. The question says that the total energy per unit volume of an incompressible non-viscous fluid in laminar flow is constant at every point. Yes, this is known as the Bernoulli's principle. This all are the incorrect options. Let's move to the second question. A second question says that which of the following is the limitations of the equation of continuity? Flow should be steady. Yes, this is limitation. Flow should be incompressible, and flow should be incompressible. Yes, even this is steady. Flow should be viscous. No. So this should be the answer. This both A and B should be the true one. I hope this is clear. Is it clear? Is it? Now, do you have any doubts? No? Great. So, shall we switch on to the question answers? I mean numerical. So, as I understand that according to the Bernoulli, it is P plus half rho V square plus rho GH is equals to constant. This is the situation. It's a P plus half rho V square plus rho GH is equals to constant. So, can you write this Bernoulli for me? Let's have a look. This is the pipe through which a fluid has been passed. This is the ground level, and this is the H1. This is the H2. I hope this is clear. Let's call this as a point A and this as a point B. You don't need to do anything. You just need to write down the Bernoulli's principle on these 2 points. Please write on it. Please write on your pen and paper. Do it quickly. Take your time of 10 seconds and do it. You just need to write down the Bernoulli's principle at these 2 points, point A and point B. Have you written it? Have you? Let's have a look. Your book should look like this. It's a P1 plus half rho V1 square plus rho into G into H1. This height should be measured from the ground level. That should be is equals to P2 plus half rho V2 square plus rho into G into H2. That's it. If you have written this, if you have written this, well done. You know how to write Bernoulli's principle. Now, anyone having a doubt in this? Is there anything? Is there? No? Great. Let's look at certain questions based on Bernoulli. Let's suppose this is one of the garden, and in this garden, uh, a pipe which carries a water has been passed, and it is something like this. That pipe, yes, this is having non-uniform cross-sectional area, something like this. Let's suppose if they called a pressure at this point is P1, pressure at this point is P2. You can see the variation in cross-sectional area. Velocity V1 here, velocity V2 here. Height h is there. So they want to find out velocity of fluid at find out velocity of fluid at point 2. This is point 2. This is point 1. So what I need to do is I need to just write down the Bernoulli's principle. So it is Bernoulli at point 1 is equals to Bernoulli at point 2. So this is equals to P1 plus half rho V1 square plus rho GH is equals to P2. Let's call this as a P2, H1. It's a P2 plus half rho V2 square plus rho GH. But as this is on the ground level, this is going to be 0. And if this is going to be 0, this is equals to P1 plus half rho V1 square. This is equals to P2 plus half rho V2 square plus rho GH. I hope this is clear. So if I need to derive this velocity V2 from this, it would be something like this. Let's rewrite this. It's a P1 plus half rho V1 square, that is equals to P2 plus half rho V2 square plus rho GH. From this, half rho V2 square, this is equals to P1 minus P2 minus rho GH plus half rho V1 square. From this, it's a V2 square, this is equals to 2 into bracket P1 minus P2 minus of 2 into rho GH plus 2 into half rho V1 square. This is V2 square, this must be divided by rho. I hope this is clear. Yes, so this is gone, this is gone, this is gone. It's a V2 that is equals to 2 into bracket P1 minus of P2 divided by rho plus 2 plus V1 square plus V1 square minus of 2GH in a square root of this. This is V2. I hope this is clear. So do you understand this? Have you got this? Have you? Do you have any doubts in this? Have you? Do you have any doubts? No? So will you be capable enough to do this every time? Yes, can we do this? Can we do this every time? Are you sure? Do you have any doubts? Is there anything? Do you? Do you have any doubts? Is there anything? No? Great. So, Now let's look at the certain applications of the Bernoulli's principle. A first application would be the Venturi meter. So we can say that the Venturi meter is a device. It is a device to measure the flow of speed of incompressible fluids, and it is having a tube with a broad diameter and a small constrictions at the middle. You can see this, that this is the broad diameter and this is having the small constrictions. So it is the situation something like this, and this so this is the situation, this is the, let's call, this is the first point, this is the second point. And what I understand is, according to the equation of continuity, I can have this relation. It's an a1 v1 is equals to a2 v2. It's sorry, a2 v2. From this, v2 could be identified as a1 v1 divided by a2. So the speed at constriction v2, which will become an a by a into v1. And now according to the Bernoulli's principle, what I can have is that this point and this point, this both are at same height. So no need to write down the rho g as rho g because it is going to be cancelled out. From this I can have this, that it's a p1 plus half rho v1 square. That should be is equals to p2 plus half rho v2 square, but I have replaced this v2 by its value. So it's a by a whole square multiplied by rho into v1 square. From this it is the pressure difference, which is equals to p1 minus p2. That could be equals to half into rho into v1 square multiplied by a by a whole square minus of 1. So it means the speed v1 of the liquid flowing through the tube at the broad neck area A is to be measured using the equation of continuity. So if once you are having one of the velocity, let's suppose you are having this velocities, so at that time velocity at second portion could be calculated easily with this equation of continuity. And this pressure difference is having created the fluid in the U tube, that this is the height difference has been created due to this pressure difference P1 minus P2, and that could be written as, it's a P1 minus P2, which is equals to density of mercury into G into H, because in this U-shaped tube it is basically a manometer, and mostly it has been filled with the mercury only. So this is density of mercury into G into H, that should be is equals to half into rho into V1 square into bracket a by a whole square minus of 1. So that the speed of the fluid at wide neck at this position could be calculated as given. I hope this is clear. So there are two options with you guys, that either you remember this formula or you just derive it, and that can be derived very easily using the Bernoulli's principle. Choice is yours, but do at least one of them. I hope this is clear. Now let's look at the applications of the Venturi meter. The carburetor of automobile has a Venturi channel, or we can say it's a Venturi nozzles, through which air flows with large speed, and the pressure is then lowered because speed is higher at the narrow neck, and the petrol is sucked up in the chamber to provide the correct mixture of air to fuel necessary for the combustion. Basically, carburetor is a device which is going to mix petrol and air within our vehicles. It is for there only to mix it. A filter pumps or aspirators or a Bunsen burners, atomizers, sprayers, all this used for perfumes or to spray insecticides work on the principles of the Venturi meter only. I hope now you understand what is or what large applications of Bernoulli's principle is. Let's look at the next application. It is the blood flow and heart attack. So Bernoulli's principle helps in explaining blood flow in an artery. The artery may get constricted. The artery may get constricted due to the accumulation of the plaque on its inner walls. And in order to drive the blood through this constriction, a greater demand is placed on the activity of the heart. Basically, this would be the situation that, let's suppose the this is the artery through which blood should flow. Now, there is certain things that has been stuck with it. Generally, we call this as a cholesterol. Yes, have you heard this? Yes, medical students might know it better than me, but this is for engineering students. Yes, so this artery may get constricted due to accumulation of this plaque, and as you can see this, its area is lesser as compared to the initial area, which was A1. So the speed of flow of the blood in this region is raised, which lowers the pressure inside, and artery may collapse due to the external pressure. The heart exerts further pressure to open this artery and forces the blood through. As the blood rushes through the opening, the internal pressure once again drops due to same reason, leading to a repeat collapse, and this may result in a heart attack. This will be the situation during the heart attack. I hope you understand this. Have you understood this? Did you? Are you sure? Are you sure? So this is the principal reason behind the heart attack. Let's look at the quick questions. Venturimeter. Venturimeter is used for measuring the flow rate of a liquid through a pipe. This is based on the yes, this is based on the Bernoulli's principle. Next, venturimeter is a device which is used to measure the flow of speed of the flow. Yes, it is used to measure the flow of incompressible, which is not to be compressed liquids. I hope this is clear. Is it clear? Is it? Great. Now let's look at the dynamic lift. Next application of Bernoulli's principle. Let's have a look. Dynamic lift. So when a spinning ball is thrown, it deviates from its usual path during flight, and this effect is called as a Magnus effect. Sorry. So if you have seen the cricket, I'm sure you must have seen it, and even in the tennis or golf, there are two category of bowlers would be there. One is there who is the faster or medium pacer. Another one is the spinner. What is the key strategy of the spinner is that he is going to throw a ball such that it is going to deviate from its path every second. Yes, it will roll, it will rotate in the air, and after having a pitch of it, it is going to deviate its path. So what we are about to learn is why the spinning effect can deviate the paths. So if the ball is moving in air without spinning, if the ball is moving in the air, then the streamlines around the balls are streaming. So situation would be something like this. Look at this. Let's suppose this is the ball. Let me show you. Yes, this is the ball. And as you can see this at this region, look at this. This is a very high denser region and this is a low density region. Yes. So if ball is not spinning, if ball is not moving in air without spinning, then in this situation it would look something like this. Yes, this is the air flows and these are the air layers. So no pressure difference and ball will move in a straight path. But as in the spin, if a ball is spinning, it is going to drag some air with it. And as it is dragging certain air with it, the distribution of streamlines around it changes, as you can see in the figure. So for non-spinning ball, this would be the situation that let's suppose this is A, this is B, that VA equals to VB and PA is equals to PB, and that's it. But for spinning ball, for the situation when ball is spinning, in this situation VA is greater than VB, or we can say a pressure at A would be less than pressure at B. So due to this pressure difference, as you can see this, that this pressure is lower and this pressure is higher because it is more denser. So due to this pressure difference, the ball experience an upward thrust, which we call as the dynamic lift. So if a ball is thrown with backspin, the pitch will curve less sharply, prolonging the flight. If it is thrown with top spin, the pitch will curve more sharply, shortening the flight. So if the ball is spinning about a vertical axis, the curving will be sideways, which producing outswing or inswing. I hope you understand this. Yes. Have you heard the dusra? Have you heard it? Yes, it is the same thing. That ball should not deviate and it should move a straight way, but it should drag certain air with it. I hope this is clear. So, do you understand what Magnus effect is? Let's see one more application based on the same application. It's a Magnus effect. So look at this. This is the aeroplane flying in the air, and the front end of an aerofoil, or we can say wing of an aeroplane front end, is the convex or round shaped, and its thickness gradually tapers off from front end to tailing edge. Let's look at this. You can see this. I'm sure you have seen it a many times, but now understand it, that why this particular shape has been designed for an aeroplane. So due to this shape, as you can see this, that air has been coming and it is moving in this two direction. Due to this shape, the above the wing streamlines of air above the wing are closer than those below the wings. So due to this reason, pressure above the wing will be less than the pressure below it. So as from a downward side pressure is higher, and from the upward side pressure is lower. So that's why as this pressure is higher, this is going to lift this, and this is going to lift this. This is what we call as the aerodynamic lift. I hope this is clear. So that's why this kind of, we can say, it's an aerodynamic shape has been designed particularly to create this effect, so that it would be easier for plane to take off. I hope this is clear. So if we can say that if surface area of the wing of aeroplane is A, and P1 and P2 are the pressures on the top of the surface and on the bottom surfaces, then lift force on one of the wing could be calculated as that F is equals to P2 minus P1 by A. And if let's say mg is the weight of the wing, then the net force on the wing will be F minus mg. And let's suppose v1 and v2, these two are the velocities of air above and below the wing. Then I could have this, it's a P2 minus P1, that is equals to half into rho into bracket v1 square minus v2 square, where rho is the density of the air. I hope you understand this. Is it clear? Is it clear? So if there is an obstacle in the tube of the flow, the streamline will split and become normal, as you see this. So I hope you understand all the situations. Do you? Do you understand this? Great. Now let's look at the certain quick questions. A spinning ball in tennis or golf or cricket are example of, yes, this all are the examples of the Magnus effect. Next, dynamic lift. Dynamic lift of an aeroplane wing is based on, again, it is based on the Magnus effect. I hope this is clear. Is it clear? Great. So let's wind up the session over here. We have covered many of the applications of the Bernoulli's principle. This is not all. We are going to cover the next applications in the next class. So before you tune into that, please have a very good command over the Bernoulli's principle and equation of continuity, because this is the requirement of next class. So please try as many questions as possible from the Bernoulli's principle and equation of continuity, because this will be requirement of the next applications. Please do. This will save us. Thank you. Have a good day. Take care. Bye.